Welcome to Argentarius Reads, my podcast series where I read public domain stories to you. Along the way, I may comment on the work as I read it. You can find free episodes of Argentarius Reads on YouTube and most podcast apps. Exclusive episodes can be found on my Patreon, link in the description. On Patreon, you can either purchase the episodes or become a member. Patreon members also get additional perks depending on the tier. Wherever you are listening from, I hope you enjoy the story. The Tales of Tchekhov, Volume 3. The Lady with the Dog and Other Stories by Anton Tchekhov. The Lady with the Dog, Part 1. It was said that a new person had appeared on the seafront, a lady with a little dog. Dmitry Dmitrich Gurov, who had by then been a fortnight at Yalta and so was fairly at home there, had begun to take an interest in new arrivals. Sitting in Verney's pavilion, he saw, walking on the seafront, a fair-haired young lady of medium height, wearing a beret. A white Pomeranian dog was running behind her. And afterwards he met her in the public gardens and in the square several times a day. She was walking alone, always wearing the same beret, and always with the same white dog. No one knew who she was, and everyone called her simply the lady with the dog. If she is here alone, without a husband or friends, it wouldn't be amiss to make her acquaintance, Gurov reflected. He was under 40. But he had a daughter already 12 years old and 2 sons at school. He had been married young, when he was a student in his second year, and by now his wife seemed half as old again as he. She was a tall, erect woman with dark eyebrows, staid and dignified, and, as she said of herself, intellectual. She read a great deal, used phonetic spelling, called her husband not Dmitri, but Dimitri, and he secretly considered her unintelligent, narrow, inelegant, and was afraid of her, and did not like to be at home. He had begun being unfaithful to her long ago, had been unfaithful to her often, and probably on that account almost always spoke ill of women, and when they were talked about in his presence, used to call them the lower race. Yikes. It seemed to him that he had been so schooled by bitter experience that he may call them what he liked, and yet he could not get on for 2 days together without, quote, the lower race. In the society of men, he was bored and not himself. With them, he was cold and uncommunicative. But when he was in the company of women, he felt free, and knew what to say to them and how to behave. And he was at ease with them even when he was silent. In his appearance, in his character, in his whole nature, there was something attractive and elusive, which allured women and disposed them to his favor. He knew that, and some force seemed to draw him too to them. Experience often repeated, truly bitter experience, and had taught him long ago that with decent people, especially Moscow people, always slow to move and irresolute, every intimacy, which at first so agreeably diversifies life and appears a light and charming adventure, inevitably grows into a regular problem of extreme intricacy, and in the long run the situation becomes unbearable. But at the very fresh meeting with an interesting woman, this experience seemed to slip out of his memory, and he was eager for life, and everything seemed simple and amusing. This seems very much like a flash-in-the-pan kind of case. One evening he was dining in the gardens, and the lady in the beret came up slowly to take the next table. Her expression, her gait, her dress, and the way she did her hair told him that she was a lady, that she was married, that she was in Yalta for the first time and alone, and that she was dull there. The stories told of the immortality of such places as Yalta are to a great extent untrue, he despised them, and knew that such stories were for the most part made up by persons who would themselves have been glad to sin if they had been able. But when the lady sat down at the next table 3 paces from him, he remembered these tales of easy conquests, of trips to the mountains, and the tempting thought of a swift, fleeting love affair, a romance with an unknown woman whose name he did not know, suddenly took possession of him. He beckoned coaxingly to the Pomeranian, and when the dog came up to him, he shook his finger at it. The Pomeranian growled. Gurov shook his finger at it again. The lady looked at him and at once dropped her eyes. "He doesn't bite," she said, and blushed. "May I give him a bone?" he asked. And when she nodded, he asked courteously, "Have you been long in Yalta?" 5 days, and I have already dragged out a fortnight here." There was a brief silence. "Time goes fast, and yet it is so dull here," she said, not looking at him. "That's only the fashion to say it is dull here. A provincial will live in Belyov or Zidra and not be dull, and when he comes here, it's oh the dullness, oh the dust. One would think he came from Granada." She laughed. Then both continued eating in silence, like strangers, but after dinner they walked side by side. There sprang up between them the light, jesting conversation of people who are free and satisfied, to whom it does not matter where they go or what they talk about. They walked and talked of the strange light on the sea. The water was of a soft, warm lilac hue, and there was a golden streak from the moon upon it. They talked of how sultry it was over a hot day. Gurov told her that he came from Moscow, that he had taken his degree in arts, but had a post in a bank, and he had trained as an opera singer, but had given it up, and he owned 2 houses in Moscow. Dang, 2 houses. And from her he learnt that she had grown up in Pittsburgh, but had lived in since her marriage 2 years before, that she was staying another month in Yalta, and that her husband, who needed a holiday too, might perhaps come and fetch her. She was not sure whether her husband had a post in a crown department or under the provincial council, and was amused by her own ignorance. And Gurov learned too that she was called Anna Sergeyenva. I'm most assuredly mispronouncing this. Afterwards, he thought about her in his room at the hotel, thought she would certainly meet him next day. It would be sure to happen. As he got into bed, he thought how lately she had been a girl at school doing lessons like his own daughter. Yikes. He recalled the difference, the angularity that was still manifest in her laugh, and her manner of talking with a stranger. This must have been the first time in her life she had been alone in surroundings in which she was followed, looked at and spoken to merely from a secret motive which she could hardly fail to guess. He recalled her slender, delicate neck, her lovely gray eyes. There's something pathetic about her anyway, he thought, and fell asleep. That's the end of part 1. Yikes. I do not approve of this man hunting this woman. We'll see what... I'm kind of hoping there's a bit of a turnabout there. We'll see what happens.